Hey, Paul Peck here. Today I'm going to show you how to transform a ceiling from this hideousness to a beautiful ceiling step by step. I'm on a ceiling project. Wanted to catch you up on this. I've been posting updates on my shorts videos. Let me know in the comments if you're seeing my shorts or if you're just watching the longer content, but I'm going to catch you up. So this ceiling's pretty crazy. The tape joints are coming down, and also there's bubbles and blisters wherever the tape joints are. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove all the tape joints. Basically, you want to do that because down the road you don't want the tape joints to start to come down. This is a back patio, but it's covered well. There's a pool outside of that, so there is some humidity and moisture. We're here in Florida. I know a lot of people give me crap about, oh, you should never have drywall outside. Well, there's probably 20 million homes in Florida that have drywall on their patios. So it's doable. They even make exterior soffit drywall boards. So it's not really a big deal here. What we got going right now is a big deal, but we're going to take care of it. And once I get all this torn down, I'm going to show you how to make this ceiling a perfect repair. So it's the butt joints. Luckily they use 12-foot sheets of drywall, so there's only about 4 or 5 butt joints on this ceiling. It's a pretty long ceiling, and it's only about 8 feet wide.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see more of these type of videos.
Definitely pretty wild how all the joint compound comes right off with the tape paint and texture. I've never seen that before. So I'm going to cut out this tape joint and just peel it back. You want to go ahead and cut the end of the tape joint so it doesn't peel down on the wall. It probably wouldn't do that on this stucco that's down below the ceiling, but I don't want to take any chances. So I'm just going to continue to pull this stuff down. They use nails to hang it. This ceiling's probably only about 8 years old, but the nails are made from a shiny metal, so there is some surfaced rust on those. So I'll take care of that coming up, and I'll show you how I do that. I just got to concentrate on getting all these tape joints down. As you can see, the rest of the ceiling's in good shape. It's just, for whatever reason, the tape joints are bubbling, and when you pull off the tape, there's not a lot of joint compound. But leave me a comment if you think you might know what's going on. I have got some pretty good comments in the shorts, and I want to see what you think about this because it's kind of crazy. And keep watching because I'm going to show you how I tape this with some FibaFuse drywall tape, which is a lot more exterior friendly than this paper tape, and also lays super flat, so it's perfect for repairs. I'm going to run the FibaFuse through my drywall tape applicator called a banjo, so you definitely want to check that out. This is the last piece of tape that I'm pulling down, and then it's time to start scraping any of the blistered areas that were left over so we have a nice tight surface to go to. I'm not going to show you the whole scraping process, just wanted to give you a little clip of it. Basically, I'm just taking all the little pieces down and anything that's hanging. Let me get that wire back up in there. Had to take down the ceiling fan. There was 2 of them on this porch. Next, I used some Kilz stain blocking primer out of a can to spot prime all the nail heads that had rust on them. All right, now it's time to mix up some of the all-purpose joint compound to apply the FibaFuse with the banjo. You want to get it kind of soupy, about thick yogurt-like consistency. All right, that's mixed up. That's what you want it to look like as far as the consistency for the banjo. All right, so we're going to be using the FibaFuse, perfect for this patio ceiling. Going to run it through the banjo. All right, got the banjo loaded up. Now you just want to point the tape right at the center of that joint and pull it out. And then you're going to come back and just hit it with your knife and smooth it all out. I'll show you on a butt joint. Want to get it up there and pull it out, and then you just want to take your knife and kind of just follow along with the banjo. Squeeze out most of the excess joint compound underneath, and then tear it right with your knife. pretty simple, goes pretty quick. Go over it a couple times just to get it nice and tight and remove any extra joint compound. And if you've never used a drywall banjo, it's a great upgrade to speed up your drywall finishing projects. All right, so I got back from lunch and the ceiling is not quite dry. So I'm going to go ahead and skim coat over the textured areas and just leave the tape joints and let them dry a little longer. So I'll just skim coat everything but the tape joints. And there's all the tape and joint compound that I pulled off. Has a skip trowel texture, and that came right off. The paint came off, the joint compound, and the tape. So I'm going to get started on the skim coating. Again, I'm going to use an all-purpose joint compound and my 14-inch drywall taping knife. I did thin down the joint compound just a little bit to get any air pockets out and make it a little creamy. You want to go ahead and leave it pretty thick, because when you're going over a heavier texture like skip trowel, you don't want the joint compound thinned down too much. If you thin it down too much, then you're going to get a lot of ridges. That's a pretty good tip for you. If you're going over texture, don't thin down your joint compound too much. But basically, I'm just getting the mud up there, and then I'm going to drop back and smooth it all out and try to eliminate all the lines that I can. The beautiful thing about skip trowel is once the ceiling's dry from skim coating, I will be able to go ahead and just texture right over that without sanding at all. I did get one comment that I wanted to address here in the video while I'm skim coating. I had someone say that it was ridiculous to skim coat this whole ceiling. They could match skip trowel texture no problem, and there'd be no reason to go ahead and skim coat the whole ceiling. Just a waste of time is what they said. But here's how I do it. I always give my customers an option. Some people are picky, some people are not. I tell my customers, hey, I can match skip trowel pretty much perfectly. But if you want a perfect ceiling and perfect repair, you're going to want to go ahead and skim coat over all the new tape joints and skim coat the ceiling and put a brand new texture back up, and that's a guarantee you'll get a perfect ceiling repair. I know what happens. If you go ahead and just repair only the tape joints and retexture only the tape joints, then spot prime the tape joints and paint the whole ceiling, I guarantee I will be able to see where the tape joints are. When you have lines going across the whole ceiling and down the center of the whole ceiling, you're going to see those tape joints because you're painting over a painted surface that's probably been primed and a couple coats of paint, and then those tape joints are going to have a coat of primer and maybe a coat or two of paint. So you're never going to catch up the joints with the ceiling as far as how the paint and primer absorbs. But the texture, you can get it pretty close, but to get a perfect match is going to be difficult. So just wanted to throw that out there, why I went ahead and skim coated this ceiling. The homeowner was planning on putting this place on the market once all the repairs were done, and they don't want any questions about what's going on with the ceiling. Looks like it was repaired. They just want it to look nice and tight and perfect. So that's my 2 cents on why I'm skim coating this entire ceiling, then retexturing it with a skip trowel. I hope that helps some people out. And I'm not going to show me skim coating this whole ceiling. I'm just going to go ahead and just do this section and then one more little section right before I'm finished with the ceiling, and you'll be able to get a look at how the ceiling looks like after it's been skim coated. All right, so if you notice, I'm going to pay special attention to the corners. You just want to take what mud is already up there and just kind of bring it into the corner. You don't want to get mud all over the walls or anything, so you don't sling it around. Now I'm going back and just kind of smoothing out these chatter marks a little bit more. And I'm putting pressure on one side of the knife and slightly lifting the other. That way I don't leave any knife marks on the ceiling. Here's the last section of skim coating the ceiling. I'm just getting the mud up there, and I'm going to explain to you exactly how I'm doing that. I'm making sure to just kind of put it on one side or the other so it doesn't splooge out both sides of the knife. So again, I'm getting it up there, then I'm going to smooth it all out. Kind of concentrating on how much mud I put on the knife. So it's pretty much all up there. Now I just got to do a little smoothing. I'm going to hit that corner one more time. Just want to get the texture and paint covered right in the corner. Makes for a nice job. You always want nice crisp corners when you're doing any kind of ceiling or wall work. All right, so I'm just going to wipe it out. Very light pressure. I'm not pushing too hard. Now I've just got my edge of my knife on the right side. I'm putting pressure and lifting on the left. Right side, lifting on the left. Then the lines go away completely. Once you try it a couple times, you'll get the hang of it and you'll know exactly what you need to do. Here's the skim coat. I just didn't do any of the tape joints, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'm sure it's going to look like $1,000,000 when it's done. I'm going to hit a couple of the butt joints, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit the tapered joint, where I'm going to show you a secret feature on the drywall knife that helps you get perfect tape joints every time. I placed the knife over the tape joint to see how much of a bump there is from the tape being applied to the flat surface. As you could see, it wasn't much, so I'm just going to go ahead and get the joint compound up there and then smooth it all out and make sure it's nice and flat. I just want to put a little bit of mud on the sides, and then when I smooth it all out, it's just going to be just like the skim coated areas. I did want to mention this is a skip trowel ceiling that I went ahead and skim coated over. Reason I do that is I'm going to retexture the whole ceiling with skip trowel, and that way it's nice and consistent, no lines or repairs that you're going to be able to see whatsoever. And I'm not even going to have to sand this skim coat at all because the skip trowel hides everything pretty much. Now that I've got all the mud up there, I'm just going to go over it a couple more times just to get rid of any lines or any little bumps. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying these types of videos. And this is exactly how you want your butt joints to look after you've skimmed over them, nice and smooth. Gonna head over to this other butt joint. Gonna place my knife horizontally across the tape joint to see if there's a hump or a bump and where I need to fill. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and get the mud up there like I did the other one and smooth it all out. It didn't look like there was much of a bump at all from the tape, so that's great. When I'm done with this butt joint, I'm gonna get that tapered joint and show you the secret feature on a drywall knife for perfect tape joints every time. You can't use them on the butt joints because it's not recessed to accept mud like the factory edges. So again, I'm just going to go over it a couple more times to get rid of any lines. I don't know if you can notice, but I'm putting pressure on the right side and lifting on the left side of the knife. That makes the lines go away. I get a lot of comments that people can't just make their lines go away, and it's all about the pressure you put on your knife. So pressure on one side, just barely lift on the other. Boom! All right, tapered joint, put the knife across it. There is a little gap. I expect that on the tapered joints because I've only done the bedding of the FibaFuse tape with my banjo. And so now I'm just going to add the mud in the center as I go. I'm just going to keep adding mud, going to get it all up there and then smooth it out. Now I want to let you know there are features on your drywall knives. Not all, but most of them have a concave side and a side that's more lifted for skim coating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the concave side and lay it right across the joint, and as I'm pulling, it's going to leave the right amount of mud because it's sitting on both sides of the factory edges of the drywall. You'll see what I mean in a second.
Let me know in the comments if you're a DIYer, contractor, painter. Just kind of curious.
That looks pretty flat. I'm going to add just a little more mud to make it even flatter. So here we go, concave side across the joint, and it leaves the exact amount of joint compound you need on that tape joint. Now I'm going to flip my knife back over and just smooth it out. I'm applying very light pressure at this point. With the concave side, I did apply a little bit more pressure than I am now. So again, I'm just going to smooth out these lines, and I'm going real light over the center. I'm not really removing mud, I'm just smoothing it out. And I'll be using the same technique of putting pressure on one side of the knife and lifting ever so slightly on the other. That makes the lines go away. All right, let's try this one more time. You could see the daylight coming through the knife. That means mud needs to be put right there on the joint. Gonna do the same thing as I did before. Just get it in the middle. Even put a little more than you think you need, because when you flip the knife over on the concave side, it's going to take off what it needs to. I love using that for finishing joints, and even on this repair, since everything came off with the tape, including the joint compound, it's like finishing new drywall. Once I'm done with all this, I am going to do a skip trowel texture. I'm just getting these tape joints smoothed out and nice and flat. I'll put my knife up there and check it. Looks good. I see a line. I'm going to go over that. Just want to smooth the lines out. To make that line go away, I'm putting pressure on the right, lifting on the left. Line gone. On to the next little section here. Going to add the mud in the center like I did on this factory edge tape joint. Just going to get the mud up there and then just smooth it all out. I'm going to use that concave side once I get the mud up, and that's going to leave the perfect amount right where the factory edges meet together. A little bit more joint compound right in the middle, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some joint compound on the edges here. Just get it all up there and smooth it all out at one time. You can tell where you need it because you can still see the drywall. Get a chunk out of there. Sometimes you get little chunks of stuff when you do a lot of skim coating over existing texture. Gonna run it right down the center, and then I'm gonna smooth out the sides. Looks pretty flat still, maybe a little more mud. Gonna run it right down the center again. Now I'm gonna apply light pressure on the right side and lifting on the left. Gonna do that one more time, right down the center. Make all those lines go away. That's what we're looking for. Looks pretty flat. Pretty happy with that. Got a couple little lines I want to knock out, and looking smooth, looking real smooth. Gonna add just a little mud to this spot, and then just wipe it out. Get rid of them lines, light pressure. A little extra right there. Wipe it down. All right, let's check it out. See how flat this is? Leaves barely any mud. Just get it down the center. Gonna have just enough joint compound in my pan. And then you want to get it on the edges. Down the center, on both sides of the edges. And then I'm just gonna lift on one side and put pressure on the other, make the lines go away. It's the same routine over and over when you do stuff. You just need to know when to apply those techniques. So the more practice you get, the better you get. Looking nice and smooth. Get this edge here.
Let me know in the comments what kind of drywall project you're working on.
All right, so you just have to stick with it, and if you keep going over it, you're going to get it nice and smooth. You just got to be careful not to pull off too much mud. You want to get rid of the lines, but you don't want to take away the joint compound. Looking good, looking pretty darn flat. Pretty happy with that. And there we go, the whole ceiling skim coated. Did the tape joints after skim coating everything but the tape joints because of drying time. It hadn't dried yet. So tomorrow I'm going to come back after this is dry and skip trowel this whole ceiling. And again, I'm not going to have to sand it all after this skim coat. Well, it's the next morning after skim coating this ceiling, and I've got another drywall dilemma here on this project. It appears that all the tape joints have discolored to a yellow, like there's some kind of water stains. I almost think that what's going on is there's a lot of moisture coming from that pool from evaporation, and they have the vented soffit. So I think moisture from the pool is getting sucked in through the vented soffits and then coming back down on the back side of the drywall, because when you finish joints, there's nothing sealing the back of the joints. So that's, in my opinion, in combination with the heat and humidity here in Florida and the attic getting so hot and the moisture, and that's what made the tape joints fail. And I think the yellow spots are actually moisture coming in from the evaporation of the pool water. Let me know in the comments if that changed your mind of what you think is going on with this ceiling. I'm just going to go ahead and skip trowel this whole ceiling and use a stain blocking primer. I'm using a Hawk and a 14-inch drywall taping knife and a scooper that I picked up off of Amazon. I will leave a link to my Amazon store that has all the equipment that I use down below in the description. Basically, I'm just going to get the skip trowel up there, and then I will knock it all down once I've got probably a 4 or 5 foot section done. I usually just run out what I have on the Hawk and then go ahead and knock it all down so there's no bumps or indentions going on. You can see the ceiling has some ridges on it from the skim coat because I did not sand it, and I only did one skim coat over the skip trowel texture on the original ceiling. But that's a good thing about skip trowel. You don't have to do any sanding, and actually those ridges kind of give the ceiling a unique look. I love skip trowel because it's like a Mediterranean look to it, and so it goes good here in Florida and other places around the country. I'm barely putting any mud on the knife, just probably about a 1-inch wide spot, and then I'm light pressure and not much of an angle. I'm just gonna have to watch it and see. It's kind of hard to explain exactly, but you can see there's not much of angle on the knife at all. Pretty light pressure. You got to go over each spot a couple of times, and you can see how it starts to grab more and more. Honestly, I think this is a great DIY texture if you're doing your own ceilings. A lot easier than spraying a knockdown or anything like that, and a lot less messier. When it dries and gets painted, it's not as drastic of a look. It's kind of a subtle texture look on a ceiling, but you always want to prime and paint it. And while you're skip troweling, you always want to keep an eye out for any bare spots, and you can just go over that or dab a little bit of mud on it, and when you knock everything down, it'll blend right in. You want to pay special attention to the corners and not get a bunch of mud everywhere. There's a spot. I'll just hit that and use up this rest of the compound and then knock it all down. This goes pretty fast. Love that about the skip trowel texture as well. You can see I've run the mud that I put on the Hawk, and I'm going to go ahead and knock it down now, going the opposite way that I applied it. Light pressure again. You just want to be sure to have enough pressure to make it all nice and consistent and take down any chunks or bumps. All right, I'm not going to do the whole ceiling for you, but I'm going to show you this last little section. That way you can get a feel for going up against the corners, and stick around because I'm going to show you how this whole ceiling turned out after I skip trowel. The skip trowel goes super fast, actually. I think it took me about less than 30 minutes to skip trowel this whole ceiling, and it's a pretty good size ceiling as far as length. It's only a couple sheets wide, but about 2 or 3 12-foot sheets of drywall long. Again, I'm paying special attention to the corners. I'm looking for spots. That's when I know if I need to go over it. But if it's a small spot, you don't want to keep going over it, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up getting a big blob. I'll leave a link in the description to a whole playlist of skip trowel texture videos, from mixing it to applying it and all the materials you need. And there's the skip trowel ceiling. Once that dries, it's going to dry same color as the joint compound underneath, because I used all-purpose joint compound from the same manufacturer, USG. Let me know down below in the comment section if you have any questions and also what you think about the skip trowel texture.
I'm going to be using a Zinsser 123 stain blocking primer for interior and exterior. I like this primer because it really seals up the surface and does block any stains, which we have a couple on this ceiling. So I'm going to use that, and also a lambskin 3/4 inch nap, since we have a skip trowel texture that'll cover it real good. And then we'll do 2 coats with a Richards Signature Series exterior flat.
And here's the completed ceiling repair, primed and painted.
And if you want to catch the next video or any of my upcoming videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button now in the center of the screen to keep up with all my videos. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'll leave some of my most popular video links down below in the description. Thanks so much for watching.